So I was working from sun up to sundown, helping women literally all over the world deal with their breast cancer. I wasn't sleeping well. My hormones were out of balance. I had some thyroid issues, some dental issues. I wasn't practicing my 7 essentials and applying them to myself. So I created the perfect storm for cancer to show up again. And talk about shame and guilt and disappointment in myself, because here I was representing myself on stage, literally, on websites, coaching women. And here I had this dirty little secret that I had breast cancer for a second time.
The information provided in this podcast is educational and not intended to diagnose or treat medical conditions.
Welcome to my Breast Cancer Conqueror podcast, where you will hear from wellness warriors who have had a powerful impact in the world. I am your host, Dr. Veronique Desonnier, better known as Dr. V, and founder of Breast Cancer Conqueror and the 7 Essential System. My mission is to change lives one breast at a time. I'm thrilled and honored to have you with me today. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to this podcast and share this with your friends and family. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wellness Warriors. So today I'm going to talk about my personal healing journeys. Yes, I've had more than one. I've had 2 healing journeys with breast cancer. And I always get a lot of questions about what I did during my first healing journey compared to what I did during my second healing journey. So I thought I'd take a few minutes to share my story with you. So in 2004, I had been in practice as a chiropractor for 23 years. You know, my passion was to bring wellness to the world, and I really wanted to help my patients live a happier and healthier life. And so I was rocking and rolling, doing everything right, so I thought. And I was getting ready for work, and I was in the shower, and I was doing a breast exam standing up, which is not the right way to do it, by the way. But nonetheless, I found a lump in my left breast. And I kept feeling around and kept wondering, is this just fibrocystic? What is it? And I came to the conclusion that it was something that didn't belong there. So right away, I consulted with several doctors. I had medical doctors that were friends, and I had a biochemist who was involved in using the black salve and had a lot of experience with that. So after I got over the shock and had to ask myself, how could somebody like me develop breast cancer? I mean, I was under chiropractic care. I was eating organic before organic was in style. I breastfed my children. I had home births. I exercised, took supplements. I mean, you name it, I was doing it. But breast cancer showed up in my life. How is that possible? So I really had to go back to the drawing board and look at my life and all the factors that could have possibly contributed to that. So one of the first things that I did was to look at my diet. I definitely started juicing more heavily, made sure that I ate a lot of alkaline foods. I started detoxifying my body more heavily. I was doing colonic irrigations. I was doing kalimas, coffee enemas. I looked at my supplementation. I started including high dose pancreatic enzymes. Enzymes act like little Pac-Man and they weaken the outer layer of the cancer cells. So any other things that you're taking to weaken those cancer cells will be more effective. I also consulted with someone who, as I mentioned earlier, was familiar with the black salve. So as always, I like to experiment with things, and I ordered some black salve and slapped it on the breast. And I really did not know what I was doing. I don't encourage anybody to use the black salve. Nonetheless, it was something that I did back in 2004. And what happened to my body was unbelievable. And I documented everything. I took pictures, but literally in about 4 weeks, my body expelled something about the size of a golf ball, a small golf ball. And when it fell out of my body, there was still some unhealthy tissue left. You could still see, unhealthy tissue in that crater. But I just couldn't keep going with the black salve. So I let it heal up and kept monitoring my body. And by 2006, based on thermogram and blood work and other tests, I realized that there was still some issues going on. And so I bit the bullet, so to speak. I did the salve again, dug even deeper on some healing factors. And the good news is after 2006, my body was clear. My thermograms looked good. My scans looked good. My blood work was good, and all was well. And during that time period, I had to ask myself, what are the top priorities for somebody who has cancer to really be able to heal their body and reverse that process? Because cancer cannot grow in a healthy body, right? It can only grow in a toxic or imbalanced body. And I literally sat down with a pen and a pad and started writing down all these things. And this is how I came to realize there were 7 basic steps, right? The 7 essential system. There was food, there's toxic exposure, reducing your toxic exposure. There's balancing your energy, your hormones, your sleep, your exercise, chiropractic care, acupuncture, all those things. Dealing with the emotional wounds was number 4. Number 5 was biological dentistry. 6 had to do with all the therapeutic plants and herbs that help support the immune system and weaken the cancer. And 7 was really adopting very early detection and being able to keep a pulse on your health while you're going through your healing journey. And then also after your healing journey, right? Because the biggest fear women have is a recurrence. So I came up with the 7 essential system, wrote the book, threw up a website in 2012, had no idea really what I was doing. One thing led to another, and then I became known as the Breast Cancer Conqueror. So fast forward, let's see, 2015. Yes, 2015. So I was working from sun up to sundown, helping women literally all over the world deal with their breast cancer. I wasn't sleeping well. My hormones were out of balance. I had some thyroid issues, some dental issues. I wasn't practicing my 7 essentials and applying them to myself. So I created the perfect storm for cancer to show up again. And talk about shame and guilt and disappointment in myself, because here I was representing myself on stage, literally, on websites, coaching women. And here I had this dirty little secret that I had breast cancer for a second time. So I chose not to share it publicly because I wanted to prove to myself and to others that if we apply the 7 essential system and we truly change our lifestyle, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those aspects, that your body can heal. And I wanted to really prove it to myself. So what I want to do now is share. I'm going to share my screen here. I've got a few PowerPoints that will show you basically how I lived my life during the second part of my healing journey. So a day in the life of Dr. V, living the 7 essential system. So as I was going through my second healing journey, so this is a thermogram of me in 2015 when I found another lump, and blood work showed that I definitely had ENOX2 protein, which is a breast cancer marker, as well as other markers, scans, all of that. So here I was facing breast cancer for a second time. Now, the good news is the lump was much smaller. I had become quite proficient at examining my breast, and the lump was probably the size of a small almond compared to the other one, which was a size of a small golf ball. So I dove into the 7 essentials, and a lot had changed from 2006 through 2015, 9 years. So there was a lot more information about breast cancer, cancer in general, a lot more testing and tools that were available to me, that I did things a lot differently the second time around. So essential number one, I realized that I was metabolically inflexible. I was heavily juicing again, which I've been juicing for decades. But as I was juicing, I noticed that I wasn't feeling very well. So I started testing my blood sugar. I just kind of thought maybe it's blood sugar. And sure enough, my blood sugar was sky high. And I had to adjust my juicing. So I removed the beets, I removed the carrots, I kept, a green apple, but really did a lot more cucumbers, lemons, ginger, and all kinds of greens. I also dove into the ketogenic diet to give my body a metabolic reset. Now, long term, for me, I don't believe the ketogenic diet would be a healthy choice. For some people, it may be, but it's important to really include lots of healthy fat and to keep your carbohydrates at a minimum. So I encourage women in our community to check their blood sugar first thing in the morning, and then also after every meal, to see if what you're eating is causing an insulin spike or a blood sugar spike. So I got rid of grains, beans, legumes. I started practicing intermittent fasting and more fasting. I learned about the fasting mimicking diet by Dr. Walter with Prolon. Did more blending. I also added GC-MAP yogurt, which GC-MAP is a it's a macrophage activating factor that is needed to really turn on those macrophages in your immune system. And I did some food sensitivity testing to see if there was anything that I was allergic to. And of course, things like gluten and grains and corn and all the typical things came up for me. Essential number two is to reduce your toxic exposure. So I really ramped up my detoxification. I started doing coffee enemas every day. I bought an ozone machine and added rectal ozone and vaginal ozone because ozone is a very form of unstable oxygen and literally kills everything. So when you do it rectally or vaginally, it's absorbed into your blood system, and cancer cells, viruses, yeast, those sorts of things. And of course, my blood work showed that I had high levels of Epstein-Barr again, which most women with breast cancer have problems with, those background infections like yeast and viruses and parasites. I did lots of hyperthermia with the biomat, the sauna. I did lymphatic drainage. I learned about the XP2 lymphatic drainage system, which consists of glass tubes that are rubbed on all areas of your body. And where there's stickiness, that means there's some lymphatic congestion. So it's a great tool to really help open up that lymphatic system. Essential number three is to balance your energy. Now, of course, and I've been under chiropractic care since I was 16 years old, but I fine-tuned it. I went to see another chiropractor and went, on a more regular basis. Added deep tissue massage more frequently. I learned about the effect of grounding and how important that is to get those electrons from the earth, because they act as they basically help with the electron transfers in your body and help the inflammatory process. I also learned about PEM, pulse electromagnetic frequencies, specific frequencies that the earth emits that we're far removed from because we wear rubber shoes, we live in houses with slabs, cement slabs. We don't spend enough time laying on the ground or walking barefoot. So I bought a PEMP mat and used that on a regular basis. I monitored my hormones, my saliva and my urine to see what was out of balance and worked accordingly with that with a doctor that specialized in bioidentical hormones. So I chose to do progesterone and estriol, which is a more protective type of estrogen. My estrogen quotient was really out of balance, which meant that my aggressive estrogens like estradiol and I forget which other one, estradiol was too aggressive. So I was estrogen dominant. Also had to add a little bit of progesterone. I focused on really supporting my methylation pathway, which I discovered, I had methylation problems, back in my first healing journey. And then I used the heart math. I'd been a meditator for many years, but I really wanted to see if I was getting into that relaxation mode. And when I started using the heart math, which is a little clip you put on your ear and looks at your heart rate variability to see if you're sympathetic dominant or parasympathetic dominant, I was staying in the sympathetic mode when I was meditating. So I had to learn how to meditate all over again and to really um, go deeper into my meditation so that I was affecting my heart and my nerve system. And I love the tool because it really helped me to see what it's like to get into that deep meditative zone where you're really in that parasympathetic mode. I did lots of visualization with seeing my body without any dis-ease and living my best life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that I could put this journey behind me. And I really saw my body healing the cancer. I felt like I needed more sunshine. So we literally moved to Florida and so I could have more sunshine and be outside more. Where we lived in North Georgia, there was a lot of gray and cold, and it just wasn't helping me. I have SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and so being in the sunshine was really a big boost for my health. And I learned to improve my sleep. I cracked the code. I had problems with my sleep for decades, did not get restorative sleep for a very long time, and did a lot of work on improving my sleep. And now I sleep well, probably 90 to 95% of the time. So that's essential number 3. Essential number 4 is to heal the emotional wound. Well, for those of you who may not know, but I come from a very dysfunctional background. Growing up, I had alcoholic parents who, they did the best they knew how with what the information that they had. So they did their best, and I've obviously forgiven and let all of that go. And I was also sexually abused by a convicted pedophile who lived next door. So this was back in the late 50s. So imagine the police going door to door in our neighborhood and warning parents that there was a convicted pedophile. I mean, that was a long time ago. But as it was, he befriended me and played with me, and, one thing led to another. So from the age of 3 to 5, I was being sexually abused, and my family kind of knew about it, but nobody really talked about it. So from the time I was a teenager, I was a troubled teenager, troubled young adult, made bad choices, bad decisions in my life and relationships. But as I came through the second healing journey, I really let go of a lot of things, did a lot of healing, nurtured that little girl inside of me. I had 2 different EFT coaches. Actually, now that I think about it, I had three different EFT coaches that I worked with, separately, but did a lot of, inner child work. With this picture that you see here is Evox, which measures the stress level in your voice, and the software in the computer puts out the frequencies in the cradle and in the earphones, so to help balance that energy, that physical energy in your body that's causing stress. So that really helped me a lot. I did NES Health, which looks at your holographic patterns, and part of that is the emotional work as well. I did some journaling, some artwork. Dr. Siegel in his book, Dr. Bernie Siegel, The Art of Healing, followed that. Lots of meditation and visualization. So essential number 4 is very key to healing your emotional wounds, because if you have that inner conflict inside of yourself, your cells are listening and your immune system is listening, and it's affecting your DNA. It's affecting your pathways. If you stay stressed out and you don't learn to manage your stress, it's been proven, and there's studies that show that if you're in that sympathetic mode all the time and you're not calming your body down and healing that stress and those emotional wounds, that can literally trigger cancer pathways that can cause progression in the disease. Essential number 5 is to embrace biological dentistry. What you're looking at in this image here is my gum with the tooth and a hole in the tooth. So, again, I want to dive deeper into biological dentistry. So, just worked with my biological dentist at the time, and she thought I had a little filling by the gum, and or a little cavity by the gum line. And when she started drilling, she stopped drilling because she realized that the tooth was empty. So what had happened is I discovered I had an autoimmune issue called root resorption, where my immune system literally attacked the inside of that tooth. Now, interestingly, guess where that tooth was? It sat on essential number. It sat on a number 14, which is a breast meridian, the upper left, which is directly connected to the breast tissue. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg, the autoimmune issue or the breast cancer that caused the autoimmune issue? Who knows? Nonetheless, so I had the tooth pulled, did lots of ozone treatment to that area. And then I did a 3D beam bone scan to look for cavitations. The cavitations are infections in the bone after you've had an extraction, and the extraction was not cleaned out properly, and it creates a site of infection, and it literally causes a hole in the bone. That's what cavitation means. And so if you've had wisdom teeth removed, if you've had extractions, I really encourage you to get checked for cavitation, because that's very, very key. And sure enough, I had 4 cavitations. I went to Marble Falls, Texas to see Dr. Nunnally, and it was a beautiful experience. And he cleaned up my mouth, and I could check off the box, essential number 5. It was an important part of my healing journey. Then essential number 6 is to repair your body with therapeutic plants and herbs. So in my first healing journey, I just basically worked with someone, a biochemist, who, made recommendations on different supplements that I needed to be doing. Well, in my second healing journey, I then knew about the RGCC, or the grease test, and I sent my blood off. They filtered it, counted the circulating tumor cells. At one point, I was as high as, I think, 5.3 or 5.6. And the goal is to get under 5 and closer to 1 and 2. And they also test your circulating tumor cells and stem cells, breast cancer stem cells, against 50 different natural extracts, or you can choose to do chemotherapy extracts as well, chemotherapy drugs. And they look to see which ones are most effective against your cancer cells. And so I followed the protocol based on the results of the RGCC test. And so that included high dose of vitamin C, IVs, which I went up to about 100 grams at one point, and then lowered it down to 50 as a process. I also did some poly-MVA IVs. Again, I did high dose proteolytic enzymes, lots of supplements, and just really stayed close to a protocol. I was very, very committed and disciplined about doing that. This is this is Hope for Cancer. So this is a result of the ultrasound that I had there. And the reason I bring this up is because I had 4 swollen lymph nodes at one point, and after I went through my healing journey, it took me 3 years to heal, from 2015 to 2018, August 2018. And this shows that all the armpit and the lymph nodes were clear, except for one, which became a calcified lymph node, or a granuloma. And then from the thermogram that you saw initially with all the inflammation, so this was me after my second healing journey. So I practiced a lot of testing. Essential number 7 is to adopt a very early detection. So I stayed on top with my thermograms, my ultrasounds, my blood work. I checked for inflammatory markers. I checked the cancer markers. I checked, my blood work on a consistent level. And by August of 2018, it was clear that everything was picture perfect. Inflammatory markers were good. Cancer markers were good. You see the picture here. Ultrasound was clear. And everything was great. So if I can do it, you can do it. And I can tell you, in our community, and my team and I have coached women and supported women in over 63 countries so far. And we've seen women of all all stages, even stage 4, where there's metastasis all over the bones and in the lungs and liver. And we've seen those kinds of cancer reverse by following the 7 essential system and following an integrative approach. I've learned a lot in the last 11 years in coaching women with breast cancer. And I've come to realize that the integrative approach is really the more balanced approach. So if you choose to do surgery, you choose to do chemotherapy or radiation, make sure you work with, our coaches or integrative doctor that can help you to, soften the side effects from those treatments, and support your body in the healing process. Because, those treatments do have very harsh side effects, but occasionally it may be important to use them to be able to slow down the growth or put the fire out, so to speak. So the 7 essential system is a process. It's a guide. It's a step-by-step process that if you follow, you never have to fear breast cancer or any dis-ease for that matter. So this is Dr. V, sending you a big healing heart hug.